At 16, my dad kicked me out because my stepmom didn't want me around. Years later, he showed up wanting to be a grandfather. I was ready to shut him down until he admitted something that left everyone shocked. Hey, Reddit. Figured I'd finally share this because it's been sitting heavy on me for years. It's about my dad, his new wife, and how everything went downhill after my mom passed. It's not some quick drama. It's the kind of thing that shaped who I am today. Took me a long time to even process it, but writing it out feels like the only way to make sense of it all and get it off my chest. When I was 15, my whole world flipped. My mom died from cancer after fighting it for 2 years. She was tough as nails, but the disease just kept chewing her down until there wasn't much left of her. Watching that happen to the person who basically built your whole life, it changes you. I was still just a kid, and suddenly everything felt empty. For a while after the funeral, it was just me and Dad trying to survive. We weren't good at it. He'd order pizza 3 nights in a row. Laundry piled up until we were both wearing our same wrinkled hoodies to school and work. Some nights we'd just sit on the couch eating cold leftovers, watching whatever old movie Mom used to love. It wasn't happy, but it was at least ours. It felt like me and Dad against the world. That lasted maybe 6 months before Dad met Lucy. At first, I wasn't mad about it. I knew he was lonely, and honestly, part of me thought maybe it would be good for him. Mom always told me Dad wasn't great at being alone, and I figured if he found someone, maybe he'd smile again. And that's what I wanted, right? To see him smile. Lucy looked like the type of woman who'd be in magazines. Perfect hair, makeup always on point, expensive-looking outfits that didn't belong in our middle-ass neighborhood. She had this laugh that Dad ate up like candy. Around him, she was sweet. She'd ask about my grades, smile at me, even bring me cookies once like she was trying to play cool stepmom. Dad fell for it immediately, but when he wasn't around, it was a whole different game. It started small. She'd make comments about my clothes being sloppy or that I tracked dirt in the house from basketball practice. She'd say it in this tone like it wasn't advice. It was judgment. Then it grew into stuff that actually messed with me. Once I had this big math test and I left the review packet on the kitchen counter. Next morning, it was gone. I asked her if she'd seen it, and she tilted her head all innocent. Oh, maybe you misplaced it. A week later, Dad sat me down angry because my teacher called, saying I didn't turn in homework. Funny thing, I had finished it. I know because I put it in my backpack. Somehow, it disappeared. You probably see the pattern. She'd act nice in front of Dad like she was looking out for me. Then behind the scenes, she'd twist stuff so I looked lazy or careless. Every time I tried to explain it to Dad, I sounded paranoid. Lucy lost my homework, or Lucy threw out my stuff, just made me sound like a bitter kid who didn't want a stepmom. He'd sigh and tell me to give her a chance or don't be so negative. Meanwhile, Lucy kept turning the screws. One night she cooked dinner, rare event, and made some fancy pasta. I don't even like mushrooms, so I picked them out. She laughed, but not in a funny way. Wow, no wonder your grades aren't great. Can't even eat like an adult. Then, when Dad came home, she told him I was disrespectful at the table. He gave me this disappointed look that felt like a knife. I didn't even know what to say without sounding like I was whining. The worst part, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. Mom had filled it with pictures, crafts, little things she made. Lucy slowly started moving those into boxes. She said they made the place feel cluttered and sad, but it didn't feel sad to me. It felt like home. When she replaced Mom's stuff with modern decorations and glass sculptures, the place looked like a furniture store. Cold, quiet, not mine. I tried spending more time out of the house, basketball practice, hanging at friends' places, even just sitting at the library pretending to study. Coming back home felt like walking into enemy territory. Dad, though, he looked happier than I'd seen him since before Mom got sick. He'd smile more, laugh at her jokes, dress nicer, and that's what killed me. Because how could I tell him the woman who made him laugh was making my life hell the second he left the room? I didn't want to be the jealous kid who couldn't handle her dad dating again. So I kept it inside. But keeping it inside was like letting her win. Every time she caught me alone, I could feel her smirk. Like she knew she had me trapped. Like she knew I couldn't prove anything. The one thing that kept me going was remembering Mom. She always said I was tougher than I thought. I clung to that because every day with Lucy felt like a test. And the worst part? I knew it was only the beginning. By the time I was 16, I realized this wasn't just some rocky adjustment. Lucy wasn't going anywhere, and if Dad couldn't see what she was doing, then I was on my own. Things went from bad to worse real fast. About 8 months after they met, Dad told me he was marrying Lucy. Just like that. No family talk. No, how do you feel about this? He just came home one evening, standing in the kitchen with this big grin like he'd won the lottery, and said, "We're getting married." I remember standing there with a mouthful of cereal, staring at him like he was joking. He wasn't. I didn't even find out when or where until my aunt called, asking if I needed a ride to the ceremony. She'd gotten her invite in the mail. That's how much I mattered in the whole thing. Dad's own kid found out through someone else. The wedding itself was a blur. Fancy place, people I'd never met. Lucy's side dressed like they were going to a fashion show. Me? I was in a second-hand dress that didn't fit right. I stood in the corner most of the time watching my dad dance with his new wife while I felt like an extra in my own life. After they tied the knot, Lucy's mask slipped all the way off. She wasn't even pretending around me anymore. That house, it didn't just feel cold now. It felt like I was a guest overstaying my welcome. And the breaking point for me wasn't even the little stuff she'd done before. It was the garden. My mom loved her garden. It was the only thing that gave her peace during those last years with cancer. She couldn't always get out of bed, but when she could, she'd sit in a chair out there, watching her flowers and vegetables grow. She said it made her feel like she was still building something, still alive in a way. Even when she got really weak, she'd ask me to water it for her, trim the dead leaves. It was the last piece of her that still felt alive after she passed. One afternoon, I came home from school and saw Lucy out there with gloves on, pulling plants out by the roots and tossing them into black trash bags. The flower beds were half emptied, soil scattered everywhere like a crime scene. My chest locked up. I dropped my backpack on the driveway and stormed over. "What the hell are you doing?" I snapped. My voice cracked, and I didn't care. Lucy looked up like she was annoyed I interrupted her chore. "This garden attracts insects," she said flatly. "It needs to be gone." That was it. No apology, no explanation, just cold dismissal like it was trash. I felt my face heat up. This was Mom's. It was the only thing she cared about when she was sick. And you're just ripping it out like it's weeds. Who the hell do you think you are? She didn't flinch, didn't even blink, just shrugged and went back to pulling up flowers like I was some annoying kid having a tantrum. Something in me broke right there. I'd put up with her snide comments, her fake smiles, the way she twisted things when Dad wasn't home. But this, destroying the one place that still felt like Mom was near, I couldn't hold back. I started yelling, my words tumbling out so fast I barely knew what I was saying. I called her selfish, cruel, heartless, everything I'd been bottling up. Then, right in the middle of my explosion, Dad came outside. "What's going on out here?" he barked. Before I could get a word out, Lucy dropped her gloves dramatically and held her hands up like she was the victim of a robbery. "She's been screaming at me for no reason. I was just cleaning up the yard, and she started attacking me." Her voice even cracked like she was about to cry. I spun to Dad, desperate for him to believe me. "That's not what happened. She's ripping out Mom's garden. The one Mom—" Slap! I didn't even see his hand coming. My cheek burned, and for a second, all I could hear was the ringing in my ears. Dad had never hit me before, not once. I just stood there frozen, staring at him. "She's your stepmother now," he snapped. "You will not disrespect her in this house." My throat closed up. I wanted to scream, to tell him everything. How she'd been sabotaging me for months. How she wasn't who he thought she was, but standing there with my cheek stinging and Lucy giving me that smug little smirk behind his back, I knew it didn't matter. He wasn't going to listen. He'd already chosen his side. So I didn't fight. I picked up my backpack, walked past both of them, and went to my room. I shut the door, sat on the bed, and stared at my wall until it was dark outside. That was the night I realized I'd lost my dad for real. Not to death like Mom, but to a woman who knew exactly how to play him. And me? I decided right then that trying to prove myself in that house was a lost cause, so I buried my head in school and sports, counting the days until I could get out. The only thing keeping me sane was the idea of college. Mom and I had mapped it out. Community college for 2 years while living at home, then transfer to State University to finish my degree. She wanted me to have a shot at something better than just scraping by. That plan was my anchor. When I got my acceptance letter, it felt like I finally had something solid. Partial scholarship. It didn't cover everything, but with Mom's college savings and staying at home, it would have worked. I remember holding that letter like it was a golden ticket. I even showed it to Dad, and for a second, I swear I saw pride flicker in his eyes. But Lucy was standing behind him, and the moment he looked at her, that flicker went out. Couple weeks later, I went to check the savings account Mom had set up for me. It was a custodial account. She managed it while she was alive, but after she passed, Dad still had legal access. Balance, 0. At first, I thought maybe I clicked the wrong account. I double-checked. Nothing. I confronted Dad that night. The screen still pulled up on my laptop. "Where's Mom's savings?" I asked. He didn't even look guilty. He just sighed like I was being dramatic. We had to use it. The house needed work. Lucy wanted to make this place livable. Livable. He'd blown my mom's last gift to me on new furniture, fancy curtains, and God knows what else. I saw red. That money was for college. Mom saved that for me. "Don't start," he cut me off. "You'll figure it out. Loans, jobs, whatever. Everyone does." I just stared at him, stunned. The man who used to brag to my mom's friends about how smart I was, how I'd be the first to go to university in the family, had just told me to figure it out like I was a stranger asking for cash. Still, I held on to the plan. Even without the savings, I thought maybe I could scrape by if I stayed home. But Lucy had other ideas. The night it blew up is burned into my brain. We were sitting at the dinner table, me, Dad, and Lucy. I mentioned my acceptance, said I'd be living at home while I finished the first 2 years, just like Mom and I planned. Lucy dropped her fork like I'd insulted her. "Absolutely not. I didn't marry your father to live with a teenager. You need to learn independence." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. "This is my home," I said. "Mom and I—" "Your mother isn't here," she snapped, her eyes cold. "And this is our house now. You're turning 17 soon. Time to grow up." I turned to Dad, waiting for him to shut her down, to remind her I was his kid and this was the plan all along. But he didn't. He chewed his steak, swallowed, and said, "She's right. Dorm life will build character." "I can't afford dorms," I said, my voice shaking. "The scholarship only covers tuition. Room and board is more than I make at my job. How the hell am I supposed to—" Lucy waved her hand like I was boring her. "Get a better job. Take out loans. That's what adults do. Stop expecting handouts." That night, I called Uncle Terry, my mom's brother. He ran a small garage and had always been straight with me. When I told him what happened, there was this long pause. Then he said, "Pack your stuff. I'll be there this weekend." 2 days later, I was shoving my clothes into garbage bags. Dad stood in the doorway, arms crossed, looking uncomfortable. He muttered things like, "This doesn't have to be permanent," and "Once you're on your feet, we can figure something out." I ignored him. When I walked past him with the first bag, I finally looked him in the eye. "You let her take Mom's savings. You let her destroy everything Mom left behind. And now you're letting her kick me out because she doesn't want me around. You're not even trying to stop it." His mouth opened like he was about to make excuses, but I cut him off. "Mom would be ashamed of you." He flinched, but he didn't argue. Didn't stop me. He just helped load the bags into the back of Uncle Terry's truck when he arrived. Not a single word of goodbye. As we pulled out of the driveway, I didn't look back. That house wasn't my home anymore. Maybe it never had been after Mom died. Moving in with Uncle Terry felt weird at first. His place smelled like motor oil and old coffee, and the TV was almost always stuck on some car auction channel, but it was safe. He didn't make me feel like an intruder. First thing he said when I dragged in my garbage bags of clothes was, "Well, at least you pack lighter than your dad's excuses." That's Terry for you. Always had a sharp tongue, but never aimed it at me in a way that hurt. College started rough. Even with the scholarship, money was tight. I picked up shifts at the campus bookstore, worked nights delivering food, and even cleaned classrooms on weekends. Half my life was textbooks, and the other half was crappy uniforms. I barely slept. There were nights I thought, maybe Lucy was right. Maybe I can't handle this. Then I'd hear Terry's voice in my head. "Your dad managed to screw up with 2 incomes. You're already beating him by just showing up." After that first semester commuting from Terry's, I realized it wasn't sustainable. The drive killed my study time. So, I moved into the cheapest dorms on campus, hoping it would save my sanity. Instead, it just drained my wallet faster. Tuition was covered, but the housing costs stacked up until 1 month later. I came up short and got a warning from the dorm office. Pay or get out. I sat in that tiny room staring at the letter, panic clawing at my stomach. I called Terry. I hated asking for help, but I had no choice. He didn't even let me finish explaining. "How much?" he asked. I told him. "All right," he said. "I'll wire it tonight. And don't you dare feel bad about it. Think of it as me investing in not letting you turn out like your dad." Sophomore year is when things finally started to shift. I was good at coding, better than I thought I'd be. I switched my major to software engineering, and for the first time actually felt like I was building a future instead of just trying not to drown. That's also when I met Liam, statistics class. He always sat near the front with organized notes like he was running a playbook. I was in the back row, half asleep, trying to survive. One day I forgot my calculator, and he slid his across the table without even looking at me. Just whispered, "Don't forget to clear it." After class, I caught up to him and said, "Thanks." He smiled like it was no big deal, but something about the way he did it stuck with me. Bit by bit, we started studying together. He'd push me to finish assignments instead of half-assing them, and I'd make him laugh with dumb jokes about our professors. Balance. Junior year, life finally felt steady. My grades were strong. The bookstore job gave me decent hours, and Liam and I were solid. He was the first person I trusted outside of Uncle Terry. He didn't know everything yet, but he knew enough. That my mom died, that my dad basically disappeared into a new marriage, that I was stitching this life together with duct tape and stubbornness. Instead of pity, he gave me respect. That was new. I crashed at Terry's on holidays instead of going home. Home wasn't Dad's house anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. Sometimes Terry asked if I'd heard from Dad. I'd shake my head. He'd shrug. "Better for your blood pressure. Man's allergic to responsibility." Other times he'd roast him harder. When I mentioned Lucy redecorating, he snorted. "Your dad never needed a woman to rearrange furniture. He's been rearranging his priorities the wrong way his whole life." I should have been bitter, but with Terry cracking jokes, I found myself laughing instead of crying. He pulled the sting out and replaced it with sarcasm. Maybe that's why I survived those years instead of crumbling. Looking back, I don't know how I managed it all. Classes, jobs, bills, a relationship. But I do know this. I wouldn't have made it without Uncle Terry. While my dad played house with Lucy, Terry became the dad I actually needed. And that made me even more certain that when the time came, I wouldn't let my real father sneak back in like nothing happened. For a long time, I didn't even have to worry about it. He didn't call, didn't write, didn't pretend to care. Honestly, that was easier. It let me focus on school, work, and Liam. Senior year hit. I graduated, so did Liam. We moved into a small apartment with a view of a parking lot and a stubborn radiator that clanged at 2 a.m. It was perfect because it was ours. Then I proposed. Simple, just the two of us. Takeout boxes pushed aside on the coffee table. His yes was everything. We posted one photo, me showing off a modest ring that looked huge on my hand because of everything it meant. My phone blew up. Friends, coworkers, people I hadn't talked to in years. And then, his name. I'd blocked Dad, but the voicemails still stacked in that hidden folder. Seeing Dad on the screen twisted my stomach. I pressed play. "Laura," he said, voice soft like we'd spoken yesterday. "I heard the news. I want to talk. I miss you." I didn't call back. Why would I? He'd had chance after chance and burned them all. A week later, Terry called. Apparently Dad had tracked him down too. Terry sounded half amused, half annoyed. "Your old man showed up at my garage looking like a kicked dog. Said he wanted to make things right. I told him the only thing he's making right is my headache. Then I shut the door." I laughed, but there was a knot in my chest. He never gave up anything easily. I had a feeling this was just the beginning. Turns out I was right. A year later, Lucy left him. Rumor was she found someone with more money and didn't bother hiding it. Took a good chunk of his cash on the way out, too. I can't say I was surprised. She'd used him like a credit card with legs. He didn't reach out again right away. Not until Liam and I announced we were expecting. That's when Dad remembered he had a daughter. At first it was small things. Friend request, then likes on my pregnancy posts. When that didn't work, he started messaging Liam's mom, Rose, through mutuals he dug up online. Rose is sweet, a casserole and blanket type who believes everyone can be fixed with patience and a hug. She called me one afternoon, voice hushed, like she was delivering good news. "I've been talking to your father. He sounds truly sorry. I think you should give him a chance." My jaw clenched. Did he also tell you he let Lucy kick me out at 16? That he spent Mom's college savings on drapes? That when I begged him to protect her garden, he slapped me across the face? Silence. Then a small, shaken, I didn't know. Because he calls it a disagreement. It wasn't. It was abandonment. Rose fell back into soft, thoughtful tone. Everyone deserves a second chance, don't they? Not when they spend every first chance burning the bridge down, I said. This is about my child now. I will not let her grow up thinking she can depend on someone like him. When Rose hesitated, Liam took the phone, calm but firm. Mom, if he shows up at any event for our baby, we're leaving. No negotiations. Rose tried to argue, but Liam's voice didn't budge. Awkward is better than toxic. It would have ended there if Dad respected boundaries. He doesn't. He started calling relatives, telling them I was keeping him from his grandchild. My phone lit up with guilt-laced texts. Family is family. You'll regret this when he's gone. A cousin wrote, Your dad just wants a second chance. Doesn't your kid deserve a grandfather? I stared at that one until I felt sick. My kid deserves stability, love, someone who actually shows up, not a man who co-signed my eviction because his wife didn't like me. I vented to Terry. He barked a laugh. Second chance? That man's on chance 12. If he wanted to be a grandfather so bad, maybe he should have tried being a father first. We kept our circle tight. We sent the gender reveal invite list to people we actually trusted. We left Dad off. Rose promised she understood. The day arrived. Simple venue. Pink and blue balloons, cupcakes, the whole glow. Liam's hand never left mine. Terry floated around cracking jokes and stealing mini quiches. For an hour, it felt normal. It felt good. Then I saw him. Dad stood near the entrance with a gift bag, wearing the exact I belong here expression I'd come to hate. Rose hovered beside him, wringing her hands like she already knew she'd messed up. My stomach dropped. I walked straight over. You need to leave, I said, low, calm. This wasn't going to become a scene. He shook his head. Not this time. I've missed too much already. I'm not missing this. I could feel eyes shifting our way. Liam stepped up on my right. Not blocking, just there, like a wall I didn't have to build myself. Sir, he said evenly, this is Laura's boundary. Respect it. Dad clutched the bag tighter, hands shaking. I have cancer, he blurted. The room went hushed. I felt heat rise in my face. Don't, I snapped. Don't use that to guilt me. I'm not lying, he said, fumbling with the bag. He pulled out a folder, printed lab reports, scans, dates. He shoved them toward me with trembling fingers. Stage 4. They told me I don't have much time. I came because I didn't want my last chance with you to be me standing outside your life. I didn't want to look, didn't want to give him the satisfaction of a crack in my armor. Terry stepped in, took the folder, flipped through. The jokes dropped off his face. He closed it, handed it back. It's real, he said quietly. My chest caved in. All those words I'd rehearsed for years, the righteous anger, the speech about choices, jammed behind my teeth. Dad sank into a chair by the door, shoulders bowing like someone let the air out of him. I screwed up, he said, voice ragged. I let Lucy run everything. I let her push you out, and I was too much of a coward to fight her. I thought I had time to fix it. I don't. I don't want to die knowing I never tried. The echo of die hung between the balloons. Liam's hand found the middle of my back, slow, steady. I knelt until I was eye level with Dad. I don't forgive you, I said. My voice was steady. You chose her over me. You spent Mom's savings like it meant nothing. You slapped me when I begged you to keep her garden. You left me to figure out college and rent and life alone. That doesn't vanish because you're sick. He nodded, tears running. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. He swallowed. I want a chance to be here, to try, even if it's small. I stared at the floor, at the scuffed line where the cartwheels had scraped the hall. Then I looked at Liam. He didn't tell me what to do. He just held my gaze and let me decide. I'll help, I said finally. I'll drive you to appointments. I'll sit with you during infusions. I'll make sure you're not alone. But don't mistake that for forgetting. I will never forget. His face crumpled. Thank you, he whispered. Terry clapped my shoulder. Better than he deserves, he muttered. You're your mother's girl. We still popped the balloon. Pink confetti rained down. Cheers rose and stuck in the ceiling tiles. People smiled the soft kind of smile, the one that knows joy and sorrow sometimes sit at the same table. Liam kissed my forehead. Our girl, he said, and for a second the noise faded, and it was just us and a future I'd bled for. After the party, while we cleaned frosting smears and swept confetti, Liam asked if I was okay. I told him the truth. I don't know. Part of me was devastated. Part of me was furious. Part of me felt guilty for even letting him back in. But underneath all that, something steadier whispered. Helping him didn't erase the past. It didn't hand him a clean slate. What it did was put the ending in my hands. Weeks blurred into schedules. Oncology consults, rides, insurance calls. Liam came to the hard ones, sat beside me while I listened to words that had once gutted our family. Metastasis, palliative, options. When Dad's hands trembled, Liam passed the water. When the nurse asked about next of kin, he glanced at me like the answer had already been decided. When we left, he buckled me into the passenger seat and drove without asking where, just letting the road cool my head. Dad tried to apologize between appointments, these small, clumsy attempts to patch holes that went to the foundation. I didn't make it easy. I didn't make it impossible. I let the truth sit between us, a third chair we both had to stare at. When our daughter is old enough to understand, I'll tell her the truth. I'll tell her her mom learned the hard way that love is showing up every time. That blood doesn't excuse a broken boundary. That a man named Liam stood beside her mom when the past tried to climb back through the window. And that even when the story got messy, we chose to write the ending ourselves. Dad's treatment started right as Liam and I were setting up the nursery. I'd paint one night, sit in waiting rooms the next. The contrast made my head spin. Pink walls, stuffed animals, then antiseptic chairs, and the sound of IV pumps. Liam never let me do it alone. When I got too tired to drive, he took the wheel. When the oncologist's words started blending into white noise, he'd squeeze my hand so I'd refocus. Dad would try to joke during chemo. Old, awkward, remember when stories, like he thought nostalgia could fix the cracks. I'd nod, sometimes even smile, but I never let him forget the distance between us. He was a patient in my car, not a father in my heart. Uncle Terry stayed blunt. "You're doing more for him than he ever did for you," he'd say, shaking his head. But then his voice softened. "Your mom would be proud. Not of him, of you, for breaking the cycle." When our daughter was born, the hospital room felt like another world. I held her, tiny and furious at the cold air, and for the first time in years, the weight on my chest lifted. Liam kissed me, whispered, "She's perfect." Terry barged in later with flowers and a stuffed wrench, for when she starts fixing all the messes we leave behind. Even through the exhaustion, I laughed. Dad wasn't there. I hadn't invited him. But a week later, after we brought her home, he asked if he could meet her. Liam and I argued about it quietly in the kitchen. He said he'd back me up no matter what. I thought about Mom, how she'd loved fiercely, even when life was cruel. Finally, I said yes. He came with trembling hands, sat on our couch like it was a throne he didn't deserve. When I placed her in his arms, his tears came fast. "She looks like you did," he whispered. I watched closely, ready to snatch her back if he faltered. But he held her like porcelain, careful, reverent. It didn't erase anything. But in that moment, I let him be a grandfather, just for her sake. Liam stayed close, his arm around me. A quiet reminder that I wasn't that abandoned 16-year-old anymore. The months blurred. Feedings, diaper changes, doctor visits for both a newborn and a dying man. Some nights I cried in the dark, torn between past wounds and present responsibilities. Liam would rock our daughter and whisper, "You're not alone, not ever again." When Dad's health declined, hospice stepped in. He asked to see us one last time. We brought the baby. He was thin, voice faint, but his eyes stayed on her. "I don't deserve this," he said, looking at me. "But thank you for giving me more than I gave you." I didn't say, "I forgive you." I couldn't. What I said was, "I hope you finally understand what showing up really means." He nodded, tears slipping down his hollow cheeks. He passed 2 days later. The funeral was small. Some family, a few old friends. Lucy wasn't there, of course. Uncle Terry gave the eulogy, short and sharp. He stumbled more than he stood, but he raised a daughter who learned to rise anyway. Afterward, standing by the grave, Liam held our daughter against his chest, and Terry leaned on my shoulder. For the first time, I felt peace, not because the past was fixed, but because I had chosen how it ended. I walked away from that cemetery knowing my daughter would never wonder if she was wanted. She'd never doubt if her family showed up. She'd grow up with a mom who fought for her, an uncle who cheered for her, and a father who never left her side. And that was the family worth keeping. Life after the funeral was quieter, but not simple. Grief has a way of sneaking in at odd times. Some mornings I'd be feeding my daughter and think of Mom, wondering if she'd be proud of how I'd held on. Other times, I'd see a man with gray hair in a grocery store and feel that sting of betrayal all over again. Liam kept me grounded. He'd take our daughter for stroller walks when I needed to cry in the shower. He'd listen when I vented about the confusion, how I could hate my dad for years, yet still feel the hollow ache of losing him. "You're allowed to feel both," he'd say. "Hurt and relief can live in the same house." Uncle Terry became the kind of grandfather my daughter deserved. He built her a wooden toy chest, painted bright yellow. "She's going to have more love in her pinky finger than your dad ever managed in his whole life," he told me, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Family gossip eventually swirled, as it always does. Some relatives whispered that I'd been too hard on Dad at the end. Others said I was too soft for letting him back in at all. For once, I didn't care. I hadn't made my choices for them. I'd made them for me, for Liam, for our daughter. One night, months later, I sat on the porch with Liam. The baby monitor buzzed softly beside us, the night air warm. He looked at me and said, "You broke the cycle, Laura. That's bigger than anything else." I thought of Mom, of her garden Lucy tore apart. I thought of Dad, who let it happen. And then I thought of my daughter, sleeping safe in her crib, her whole future still untouched. "Yeah," I whispered, leaning against him. "It ends with me." Because in the end, Dad's story wasn't mine to carry anymore. I'd chosen my own family, built on loyalty, love, and showing up every single time. And that's the only legacy I want my daughter to inherit.